Hello everyone, my name is Cameron Stevens and I'm a local real estate agent here in Los Angeles. Today I'm going to talk about tips for first-time home buyers, 10 tips to be exact, and this is based not only on my experience with helping countless clients purchase their first home, but also my personal experience buying my first home as well. With interest rates at historic lows, mortgage applications for first-time home purchases are at all-time highs, and then another month goes by and then they hit yet another all-time high. It goes without saying that purchasing a home has jumped way up the list of many people as they begin to navigate what the pandemic means for their work and their home situation. It's a daunting experience, especially in Los Angeles where home prices are quite high compared to the rest of the country, and the great homes are still getting snapped up very quickly. That being said, it can certainly be done, so I'm going to go over my top 10 tips for purchasing your first home. First, you'll want to make sure you have your down payment in order. For many people, this is going to be 20% of the purchase price, but with interest rates low and prices high in LA, I'm seeing more and more people put less money down. I used to not be a huge fan of putting less than 20% down due to the fact that you have to pay mortgage insurance and usually got a higher interest rate, but I've recently changed my stance on this. Now I recommend people put at least 10% down, but you can comfortably put anywhere between 10 and 20% down and still have enough equity in the home and still get very competitive interest rates. Plus, mortgage insurance is only paid until you reach 20% equity in the home, so if you do put less than 20% down, I recommend looking at your long-term financial situation, just seeing if there are ways that you might be able to pay that off a little bit faster and remove the mortgage insurance quicker than the typical schedule. I definitely do not recommend putting more than 20% down because interest rates are so low at the moment. I mean, remember, if you can get 3% or less on your mortgage rate and the stock market is historically returning 6% or more per year, that means the difference, if you do have that extra money, is far better invested in a broad index fund than in your home. That's letting leverage work in your favor. My second tip, see if you qualify for different assistance programs for first-time home buyers. Many lenders will actually offer you a credit to your closing costs, which actually functions as cash in hand if you do qualify for one of these programs. Sometimes it depends on your income, others are completely independent of income and instead focus on buying in particular areas. Some are not even through lenders at all, but rather through state or federal programs. I have come across a few recently that I really like for certain buyers, so if you're on the fence and you want to know about some of these programs, just call me or email me. I'd be happy to chat. Third, make sure you're putting aside money for closing costs on top of your down payment. Now, I've worked with many first-time home buyers to actually get their closing costs down, sometimes by thousands of dollars, but they do exist and you're going to have to pay for them. I mean, many of the big ones like title insurance and escrow fees, they're actually based on a purchase price point system, meaning they're directly tied to the purchase price of your home. In general, I recommend people putting at least 1.5% of the purchase price of your home aside just to make sure you can cover your closing costs. Don't worry though, your lender will advise you on this as well to make sure you don't actually get into something that you can't afford. And I always advise my clients on closing costs all the way up to the very end on closing day. Now here's a big one at number 4, get pre-approved early. It's a question that I get over and over and over. When should I get pre-approved for a loan? The answer is as soon as you can. The reason for this is that, look, there's mortgage calculators online and I, of course, can provide estimates as to what you might be able to afford, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one loaning you the money. The lender is. Only they can take a look at your finances and tell you exactly what you would qualify for better or for worse. There are all sorts of little snags you can hit, like credit or student loans or liquidity of funds or legal business structures and type and length of employment. The list goes on. Of all these things that you might think are not a big deal, but Surprise! They're a huge deal to someone lending you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And of course, there could be good news too. You might find different loan programs that offer you fantastic rates that you didn't think you could get, or income that you didn't think you could count, but you actually could, and it might actually make the amount that you're approved for higher than you expected. And here's the thing, when you get pre-approved, you do take what is called a soft hit on your credit. But the credit bureaus give you an entire 6 months of time where any further mortgage-related credit inquiries only count as that initial hit. They assume people will be shopping around for their mortgage, so they don't penalize you for doing so. And though, yes, a pre-approval only counts for somewhere between 30 to 60 days or so, depending on the lender, if the pre-approval expires, you just call them up and have them run it again. They'll just update you on current interest rates and make sure your income still qualifies, and then they'll just issue you another pre-approval, no problem. Remember, you cannot write an offer without a pre-approval, so in most instances, real estate agents won't show property to you without evidence of that pre-approval. They don't want to have to show a home to someone that isn't ready to buy yet. Therefore, as soon as you're ready to see houses in person, it's time to get your pre-approval in order. That is why the pre-approval is one of the very first things that I help first-time home buyers with before many other steps can happen. I can advise you on how to go about doing that. I can even recommend lenders to you as well. Tip 5, understand your payment. So when you're a renter, you really only have one housing payment: rent. When you own a home, you have multiple payments that you'll need to take on, and you should understand what they mean and when they're due. You may have heard from some of my other videos of the acronym PITI: principal, interest, tax, and insurance. These are your 4 main components, but it could include a 5th for HOA dues if you purchase a home in a planned development like a condo or a townhome. The first 2, principal and interest, they are a part of your mortgage payment, and you'll pay them as one lump sum each month on the first directly to your lender, similar to a rent payment. Principal refers to the principal of your loan balance. It's essentially the money that you build up as equity ownership in the property. Interest refers to your interest payment on the loan. Now, early on, more money does go towards interest, but as you get further along, a larger and larger percentage of your payment will go to principal and less to interest. T refers to taxes, good old Uncle Sam, property taxes, and any special assessment taxes. Remember, taxes are not due each month. Rather, in the state of California, they're paid for the entire year, and they come in 2 equal payments: December and April. Remember, if you're not choosing to do an impound escrow account for your taxes, which I actually don't recommend for many of my clients, you still do need to make sure you're putting money aside for your property taxes that are due by the end of the year. Finally, insurance. Now, most people actually pay this as a lump sum on the year at the beginning of ownership, but you do need to keep it current year after year to satisfy your lender requirements, so make sure you pay it. Remember, property taxes and interest on your mortgage are both tax deductible, as is mortgage insurance if you end up having it. The tax benefits of home ownership. Tip 6, buying what you can afford. Remember, everyone's financial situation is different, so it is up to you at the end of the day to choose responsibly what kind of house payment you can afford. You may be comfortable with the payment of the full amount of your pre-approval, but even if you're approved for a high amount, that doesn't necessarily mean you should spend that full amount. In most instances, the monthly payment on your home is going to be higher than your previous rent in Los Angeles. That's because you're going from a shared apartment to, surprise, a whole place to yourself. Of course, owning where you live has some incredible financial advantages, but it can be financially disastrous if you become house rich and life poor. So, of course, you should try to get approved for as much money as you can, but then decide how much of that you actually want to spend. Coming in at number 7 is one people don't really like to talk about, but they definitely need to, and that's how much of a fixer you're okay with. On the scale of it needs literally everything to completely turnkey, everyone should have a firm conversation about what condition you need the home to be in, really. And I'll be honest when I say that most people probably want a little bit more turnkey than they actually think they do. Remember, moving sucks. Buying a house is stressful. So you might think you want a fixer that you can remodel yourself, but what happens when you got to go to work all day and something breaks, or that remodel project gets pushed and suddenly that house you thought you were going to have is way further out in the future than you thought, or worse, it costs more than you expected? You might be thinking that I'm eating my words on this one right now, since I purchased a fixer home that I'm in the middle of remodeling right now. And yes, financially, it is a fantastic way to earn even more on your investment, but it's taken far longer than I imagined. It's been physically tough, and I'm gonna be ending up over budget. It's definitely for some people. I certainly don't regret it. I will definitely make money on it in the long term, but for most of my clients, I can't actually recommend a major fixer as your primary residence. That being said, if you're handy and you got a little cash to spare, a light to medium fixer could actually be a fantastic way to go. It's really just all about honesty with yourself and what you want out of a home. Tip number 8, very important, get a great agent. Yes, I'm a real estate agent, so you might think that this point is a bit of self-promotion, but check this out. I represented myself as a buyer on the purchase of my first home. And oh boy, did I get the firsthand reality check of needing an agent to help myself out. I had to do this weird thing where I had to break into 2 people, and I had to have Cameron, the real estate agent, help and advise Cameron, the buyer. That's because, yes, most agents can do a fine enough job of handling the basics of a purchase. We do this for a living, after all. But a great agent is someone you trust personally, that picks up the phone when you call, that navigates you through negotiations, that assures you everything will be all right, and then turns around and makes it all right and does whatever needs to be done. They're your first line of defense against all the crappy things that come up during inspections. They're researching everything for you. They're calling county offices and pulling permits. They're getting you deals on inspections. They're organizing handymen. They're attending appraisals. They're getting cost estimates for every type of contractor. They're making sure documents are in order. They're explaining those documents, those mountains and mountains and mountains of documents in every little detail. Most agents don't do any of that, but guess what? We all get paid the same when you buy your home. Choose someone that goes above and beyond, that you truly connect with, and that lays it down all on the line when things get tough. That is a great agent. Tip 9, get prepared emotionally. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. This process is tough. Specifically, it's emotionally tough. It is totally a roller coaster of ups and downs. It is your first house, after all. When I purchased my first home, even though I do this for a living, it was still so tough. There were times where I was just completely worn thin. Ask any great agent and they will tell you that the true reason they exist is because this process is complicated, difficult, and emotionally taxing. And our job is to be there through all of it, helping and supporting. And that's really true. Honestly, there isn't anything you can do to prepare for it. I'm sorry, I don't have a magic answer here on this one. You just have to know that going in, it's emotionally difficult, but you will get through it to the other side, and it will be worth it. The last tip I have for you, tip 10, is very relevant in today's times and likely about all of this process going forward into the indefinite future. Things have changed due to the pandemic, and obviously at the moment we need to do a lot of safety procedures to make sure that we're able to view properties as safe as possible. Of course, we use masks and sanitizer, but additionally we view things through a digital lens far earlier. Instead of photos, we're now more likely to see videos or even click through a 3D walkthrough of the property. We might use Google Street View to virtually walk the neighborhoods. We'll sign a very few things in person. Almost everything is entirely digital now. And a lot of that's good. I mean, it means we can really get a sense for a home in the area before we take the time out of our busy schedule to go see it. But again, we always still have to go in person. I can't tell you how many times this year I've heard something looked bigger in the photos, or something looked smaller in the photos, or it looked just plain different from the photos. You can't hear noise, whether it's how peaceful a balcony is or how noisy the street is. You can really only use this to cover the basics. Does it fit your general criteria? And then you go in person. And I actually kind of want to play off that for a little bit of a bonus tip. Call it tip number 11, just because I do like to go above and beyond. Biggest thing you cannot get without being in person is how a home feels. These are the intangibles. They're the things that are hard to put into words, but humans can intuitively understand simply by being in a space. My last tip is this: go with your gut. You should honestly be able to tell within minutes of being in a home if it's the one. Look, you can take a look at numbers and photos, inscriptions all day, but only you know if you get that feeling of butterflies in your stomach. Conversely, if you walk out of a home saying, it just didn't feel right, great, stop there. No need to analyze it and figure it out. Don't noodle it to death. You'll drive yourself crazy. Go with your feeling and move on until you find that perfect feeling. Just so you know, that feeling should feel like dropping from a roller coaster. Equal parts wild excitement and equal parts sheer terror. That's what you're looking for. That, I think we found the one. So there you have it. Actually, 11 tips for the first-time homebuyer. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about this process. If you're interested in purchasing your first home, I love working with first-time homebuyers and taking a deep dive into what you're looking for and how we can strategize to make that happen in this still very competitive market in Los Angeles. To be successful, you need the right agent, see tip 8, who can market you as the right buyer and understand how to craft the right offer, because otherwise, man, it is going to be tough out there. And if you're looking to sell your home, I have a fantastic program that really just blows what other listing agents are doing right out of the water. I pay for all aspects of digital marketing, from photography and drone footage and videography and 3D walkthrough and virtual open houses, all right out of my entry-level commission. No other listing agent is doing this, and if they are, they're just gonna go ahead and pass the cost right along to you or mark up their cost to you, but I pay for it, no questions asked. It's my way of bridging the gap between the virtual and the personal. Thank you again for watching, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to chat.